Today, I have a very special episode for you. I'm going to interview two of the most brilliant and influential minds of our time, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Scott Hamilton Kennedy. They are the creators of the documentary film Shot in the Arm, which explores the science, history, and the impact of vaccines on humanity. Shot in the Arm is a fascinating and eye opening film that takes us on a journey through the past, present, and future of vaccines. It shows us how vaccines have saved millions of lives from deadly diseases like polio, measles, smallpox, and COVID-19. It also shows us how vaccines are developed, tested, and distributed around the world. And it addresses some of the myths, fears, and controversies that surround vaccines and their safety. My close friend, the legendary filmmaker Ted Kotcheff, who's now 92, significantly influenced my decision to get vaccinated during the pandemic. He recounted a childhood experience where a polio vaccine saved his life, emphasizing the importance of vaccinations throughout his life. Ted's wisdom and resilience, having overcome various challenges, convinced me to take the COVID shot for my safety and the community. Your documentary, Shot in the Arm, which focuses on vaccination stories and the history of vaccines, can dispel fears and doubts. Thank you for being on this show, and I hope that people can gain insights into the true importance of the vaccination through your film and personal experience. So thank you for being on this show.
And I know Ted. I actually know Ted Kotcheff. I haven't talked to him in years.
Yeah.
I have to get him the film.
Yeah.
And by the way, with that introduction, we're done with the interview.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Let's go have a beer. You know, what do we, I don't know what else to add to that.
How do you know? How do you know Ted? How do you know Ted?
Oh, I met him in my building years ago. We used to pass, in a corridor for many, many years. And I was I'm in the entertainment business. So the funny thing is, the doorman goes, "Hey, Antonio, don't you know who that guy is?" I goes, "No." I said, "That's Ted Kotcheff." I knew his work. So to make a long story short, I left my business card, and he's the former executive producer of Law and Order Special Victims Unit. He gave me a call 2 days later. We had breakfast.
Yeah, that's him. Regular guy. Yeah, beautiful.
Since then, boom, we connected. So
love it. Thank you. I got to reach out to him. I might want to confirm an email address with you after this, Andy, but go ahead.
Sure. So here we go. What inspired you to make a documentary about vaccines and vaccine hesitancy?
Sure. It was the surprise of seeing in 2019 that there were record-breaking measles outbreaks in a few pockets of the United States. Here in New York City, there was a state of emergency, Washington State, all across Europe. And I did my probably 20-minute Google search to say, where are we with the history of measles and the MMR vaccine in the United States? And in 2000, we'd almost eliminated measles from the United States. So how did we go from almost saying completely eliminating it to seeing these outbreaks? And I reached out
thousands of cases
in very specific pockets that had been targeted, as I learned when I first reached out to Dr. Paul Offit, who informed me, "Scott, this is happening because there are a handful of very clever disinformation merchants, anti-vaxxers, who convinced parents, scared parents into thinking that the MMR vaccine was dangerous, and that got them to get their kids vaccinated, and that lowered vaccination rates, that lowered herd immunity, and we saw these outbreaks." So that was the light bulb moment of like, well, how can this possibly be happening? Right. And let's tell that story. So I met Dr. Paul Offit. He introduced me to Dr. Tony Fauci and Dr. Peter Hotez, and on the pro science side. But I wanted to tell the story of who are these disinformation merchants too. So we put the camera in front of the OG, Andrew Wakefield, and his fraudulent study that started all the scare around MMRs. Del Bigtree, who is one of the largest presence on social media and the interwebs. And now the sort of top of the pyramid is Robert Kennedy Jr., long before he threw his hat into the ring, first as a Democrat and now as an independent. We filmed
for president of the United States.
And we filmed with all of them, and we thought we had a very interesting and timely and fascinating and complex film. And then COVID happened, and it really went to this other place where it took us a long time through the process of filming and editing to see that it really became a film about the social contract. Like, what is our responsibility as an individual, not just to ourselves, to our family, to our neighbors, but to our entire community, our state, our country, and the planet, and how fragile our relationship is with the social contract currently.
Sure. How did you approach the topic from a scientific and historical perspective, Neil?
Yeah. So obviously, get my gumdrop out. I claim no medical expertise beyond what I just read like everybody else does. And so my relationship to this was principally as script advisor, but also later as executive producer, Scott realizing that I had more to contribute to the visibility of the film than just helping him adjust scene sequencings, or there's some scenes that he had, for example, where a claim was made scientifically, and I said, Scott, you got to put a chart in there or something beneath that, because
bring it home.
Bring it home. And there it is. And there are ways to do that. You can like draw one in real time swiftly so that you can see the movement of the data, or
you
others.
Just had your hands.
No.
I like that.
So I felt as an educator, as a scientist foremost, but also as an educator, I could, there were ways I can contribute to this. Now, the history, I think we could all dig up the history of vaccines. It's very well documented, and he didn't need me for that. But just in terms of how the science got attached to his storytelling, so that you don't bog down in the science, because then it's taking your medicine, right? Oh, I got to watch a documentary. I got to learn something,
read a study.
Yeah. So this documentary lands differently, I think, from a traditional documentary, because of how strong the human element is, how compassionate it is with those who have been taken in by anti-science sentiments that are out there. And so I saw that as my role.
Yeah,
I think I fulfilled that role.
In the film, what disturbed me was Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his statement when he said, anyone who tells you, trust me, and he's talking about science, people with science, you shouldn't trust them. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm an engineer. I'm an aerospace engineer. I graduate before the entertainment business. So I build, jet propulsion rockets. So this was my thing. And,
Is that a B-29 behind you on the wall?
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, my office is full of portraits of planes. So it's just my thing, So the thing about me that gets me is, who should I trust? Balloon people? I'm talking about balloon people. I mean, airheads, like, like I don't get it. I mean, I grew up in a world where, look, even Ted Kotcheff, right? He gave me a whole history because he's 92 now. And back then, the whole polio thing, and he's telling me, well, you know what, Antonio, when you went to school, right? It was a known factor that you had to be vaccinated in order to go. You had to show your vaccinated card, And it was a known thing. So does that disturb you at all, Neil? Because
so let me mention something here that's very subtle. Okay. The fact that Ted Kotcheff, how do you say it? Kotcheff, sorry. The fact that Ted Kotcheff, who you befriended,
right,
gave you this personal testimony on the value of vaccines to him, and that's what convinced you, is evidence that we are highly influenced by one-on-one encounters with people who have personal stories.
That's right.
Right.
But that works in the other direction as well. Someone could say, I knew somebody who right after the vaccine, they had autism symptoms. So I'm not vaccinating my children. And they tell that to you with passion and conviction and with the same influence that your friend had on you, an anti-vaxxer can have on someone who's otherwise sitting on the fence. And so what needs to happen in the education system is we should not be, people need to teach science as a method of inquiry, where the results are not because someone tells you they're right. It's because the data, the statistics and the data all align with that result. So it's not that he was saved by polio. It's that millions of people were saved by polio.
Right. He did mention.
Now, you were influenced by that one-on-one encounter, and I'm glad for that, but it should not have taken that.
Right.
It should have, where's the data on look at all these people that did not get polio after the vaccine and who got polio before the vaccine with those iron lung machines helping them breathe, those images. I think one of them is shown in the film. And so the public in our training about science does not have the first urge to devalue one person's eyewitness testimony relative to the faceless bar chart or pie chart that shows the efficacy and the effectiveness of the just the effectiveness of the treatment. So this is just something to consider here, because when Anthony Fauci speaks, he's not telling you to do things because he just did it in his lab and no one has verified it yet. He's communicating a trend line in where the frontier research is headed. Now, yes, some of that communication could have been a little better,
right,
in that rather than saying, here's what you should do, what he should have said was, latest evidence suggests that this is how we should, yes, we think we need to wash down the groceries when they come in the front door. We are still working on this. Stay tuned. We will give updates in a week.
Yeah.
That's how that should have happened, rather than make declarations. But regardless, had we been taught about science properly, or more authentically in our school system, you would learn that on the frontier, things are changing until there's verification of one result or another, or falsification of one result or another. Both of those can happen. If you knew that, then when the science wisdom changes from 1 week or 1 month to the next, you wouldn't freak out by that.
right.
You'd say, oh, that's science doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
And then, Robert, to your point of bringing up that quote of Robert Kennedy Jr. saying, if somebody tells you just trust in the science, don't trust them. That's the epitome of cynicism. He's trying to just make it seem like they're tricking you by saying, don't worry, you're not smart enough to know what the science is. Just trust us in it. And he's then saying, I'm the only one you can trust in. I'm pointing out who the liars are. And it's just a terrible, terrible, cynical manipulation.
It's terrible. How do you deal with the backlash or criticisms from the anti-vaccine movement or other, groups which oppose your film?
Sure. We're just getting out there, so we're going to see how it goes.
He's putting me at the front of that.
I'm hiding.
I told people that I was going to be interviewing you, and I kid you not, there are people coming to me telling me negative things. They really strongly believe whatever they're hearing or where they're getting the information from. And the disinformation is what I call it.
Yeah.
Misinformation and being misinformed. I get it, because I tell them, I said, look, when you were a kid, didn't you, you were vaccinated when you went to school. You don't want your kids to be vaccinated? It doesn't make sense. So how do you?
Well, I think one of the most potent parts of the film was it. Who was it that said? Hotez Offit says, vaccines are the victim of their own success. Right? You walk down the street, you're not dying of afflicted by polio or dying of smallpox, and you think to yourself, why do I need vaccines at all?
That's right.
When it is that very fact that enables you to be alive to utter that sentence.
Right.
And that reality is not widespread enough.
And then anti-vaxxers take advantage of that by saying, well, when have you ever seen a case of polio? And do you know what's in the vaccines? So it's a perfect storm of brilliant marketing, the brilliant evil marketing of these guys that to use fear and lies and misinformation and really disinformation to scare families. And they've sadly been incredibly successful at it. So we are in a transition time. I'm hoping we're in a transition time, that we're going to come past this hump of people being so cynical about what they can trust and what they can't trust. And we're going to get past this because they're trusting in science every day. They're trusting in the science that we're using today to communicate with each other. They're trusting in the science getting into their car and the brakes are going to work. They're trusting in the science of the food that they eat and a plane that they get on. And I don't know where the disconnect is between them saying, I trust in the systems that allow me to trust in those, and now I'm going to break from believing in those systems.
You know what might have changed all this? If COVID were 50% lethal.
Ouch.
Then I don't know that you'd find, I don't trust the vaccine. I don't know. So maybe COVID, if it were more lethal, it might have saved more lives.
Right.
When you, in the curious way that those kind of statistics work,
Yes.
right? If it's especially lethal, then people are motivated to not die, and higher vaccine rates, and then it might have spread much less.
Right. How many millions of people died after the vaccine was available?
Right, after available and chose not to take it. Right.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny, but in the film, Robert, F. Kennedy Jr. speaks, and he even says that his own kids, I believe he said that are vaccinated. Correct?
Correct.
So your kids are vaccinated, and yes, he has this disbelief of the vaccines, which is part where I don't get it. I really
No, the contrast, you're absolutely right. There's evidence that he and his wife Cheryl Hines had a holiday party in, I think, 2022, where they required everybody to come to the party to be vaccinated. So the hypocrisies go on and on. If you ever get a chance to interview him, one that I'd love to see him answer is, well, two. He always says, I'm not anti-vax, I'm pro safe vax.
Right.
So just say, okay, what vaccine are you in favor of? He won't even say polio. I do it in the film. So that's one for the press. Ask Bobby Kennedy what vaccines he believes in, if he isn't anti-vax. The second one is, this is more snarky, show me your medicine cabinet. You're so anti-big pharma. You're so anti this. You're so anti this. I'm sure he's cherry picking. I'm sure we don't want to know what he has in his medicine cabinet. And he and his wife have in their medicine cabinet. Because if we were to believe his cynicism about big pharma, wouldn't you think he wouldn't allow anybody in his family to use anything that came from big pharma? So it's just cherry picking and manipulation at the worst.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy for this film. I already know the knowledge of it my mother taught me. My father taught me. Life taught me. And Ted Kotcheff even elaborated on it. So I hope that everyone watches this film and their eyes open. The reality hits them, that this is just a good thing for the community, for everyone's safety, And I believe that the film is being launched, right? At the you have a theater release in New York City at the Angelica Film Center on November 2nd, and Los Angeles. Yeah, wow. Actually, yeah. What is today? Okay,
And it goes for a week.
Yeah.
For this first week of November.
That's right.
And then in Los Angeles on November 17th at the Laemmle Cinema
In Glendale. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and then you're going to be doing question and answers in both facilities, right? In both, right.
Yep.
On the first of the nights in Glendale and the 3 nights here in New York. I'm based in New York, so it's easier for me to do multiple nights.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then before expanding to other markets and across North America, congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you for this film. God bless you. I should even say congratulations, because you know what? It was amazing when I watched it. It was a learning process too, for me, even though I knew the answer to it. long ago. And I just hope that people take this film for a positive value. You know?
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
So thank you and God bless and enjoy the journey in this wonderful film.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.